yeah, it's Transgender Day of Visibility. Let's talk about Jesus. My coffee has lots of stuff in it, but for some reason it's not sweet. Much better. Okay. So I wonder how many people are freaked out with that opening. Hey everybody. So like I said, today is Transgender Day of Visibility. Yay! It's a day to celebrate the trans community and also talk about some of the issues and discrimination that we face. Coincidentally, it's also Holy Saturday, which is the day right after Good Friday when Jesus dies, and right before Easter when he rises from the grave to feast on the brains of the living. Wait, no. Bring eternal salvation and spread a message of love and peace. That. Suffice it to say, if you're a Christian, it's an important day. Unless you're Orthodox, then that's actually next week. Or if you're Jewish, then it's Passover. Or if you're Muslim or some other religion, maybe it's something else? Or if you're atheist, it's just regular Saturday? Happy regular Saturday! In any case, as a trans person and a religious person, I've got a lot going on in my head today. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to do with this video, those two things kept kind of intersecting. So anyway, what is Transgender Day of Visibility? It came about in, I believe, 2009, kind of as a response to the fact that there's not really any holidays to celebrate the trans community. There's Transgender Day of Remembrance, which sucks because it is a day that we are remembering all of the transgender people who have died. There's also Pride Month, but as a community within the LGBTQIA+, we kind of get lost in the shuffle. So the whole point is to set aside a day to celebrate the vibrant nature of the trans community and to also address and acknowledge and bring attention to some of the challenges that we do deal with. You know, it's funny, a lot of people think that this is like some new phenomenon, and really, transgender people have been here all along. There's trans people everywhere, and there always have been. I mean, to be perfectly honest, you've probably met a lot of transgender people and didn't even know it. And that's because we're just people like everyone else. When you look around, we are doctors, lawyers, police officers, activists, actors, musicians, politicians, priests. We're young, old, black, white, rich, poor, religious, and not. We're people just like you. Everyday citizens just trying to live our lives. However, there are undeniable challenges. And there are some people who just don't see our basic humanity. Quite frankly, there are some who just don't want to. And most frustrating, especially for me, is that usually the people who have their mouths going are supposedly religious. And they like to say things like, being transgender goes against God's will, or some other nonsensical claptrap like that. And if we're going to keep it 100, they were saying the same thing back in the day when my parents got together. So we've been down this road already. They were hollow and vacuous assertions then, and they still are now. It remains a bunch of nonsensical BS. So, like I said, tomorrow is Easter, and every time around this year I get very reflective. It's funny, a lot of people don't realize how religious I am, when in fact I'm like a cradle Episcopalian. Legitimately, I met my wife at a church choir camp. But I think that part of the reason people don't think that way is because I don't come out of the gate being a judgmental jerk. You know, church has always been a big part of my life. And frankly, when I see or hear other Christians spewing a bunch of hate, it sickens me. And over time, that started to give the church and religious people broadly a very bad reputation. And that's not how I want to be viewed, because I know that's not what Christianity or most religions are about. Hate should never be the face of any organization. If it is, you're messing up. It's clear to me, too, that when we're talking about understanding the Bible, a lot of people spend the amount of time and energy in reading and understanding it that they do with the U.S. Constitution or the Apple Terms of Service, aka they just don't. Before I came out, I had a big fear about getting a lot of hate and resistance from people, in large part based on religion. At least in my experience, I found most people in the world are not like that. It just seems that the vocal ones are. And today we're starting to see a bit of a shift as far as trans acceptance and people's understanding of what exactly our community is about. Martin Luther King is famous for a quote which actually he took from a Unitarian minister named Theodore Parker, who was an abolitionist in the 1800s. And the saying is, the arc of the moral
universe is long, but it bends toward justice.
And I really hope that's the case. People ask me sometimes what makes a good ally for the trans community. And there's a lot of different things you can do. You can go to rallies, you can donate, you can befriend someone. But I always kind of go back to this one story. Growing up, my mentor was actually my priest. That's not necessarily a usual thing for a lot of people, but my priest was not a usual guy. His name was Peter Molnar. He was actually a mental health administrator in New Jersey for like 50 years. And in that role, he met my grandfather and became a lifelong family friend. And really, ultimately, he was more like a grandfather to me. But he was also a chaplain in the Army, and eventually became a colonel. And during his service, he actually was in Vietnam. And he always used to tell this story about an accident that happened while he was over there, where, as I remember, they were digging out a foxhole. And this one soldier was at the bottom of the hole, and somehow something gave way and the dirt collapsed in on him. So of course everybody rushed over to try to help, and ultimately the only thing that was still exposed was his hand. So everybody's furiously digging, trying to get him free. And after a little while, it's clear that he's not going to make it. And so as Padre told it, when this realization hit everyone, there was one other soldier who, realizing that there was nothing they could do, just laid on the ground and held that other soldier's hand until he died. There was nothing else that they could do, but at least the man knew that he wasn't alone. Shortly before Father Pete died, we actually learned that while he'd been telling this story for years, and framing it as just a soldier, he was actually the person that laid there and held the dying man's hand. And really, sometimes that's what being an ally is. It's not that you need to do much. Sometimes you just need to be there. And also you need to understand that you can't save everybody, but you need to do what you can. But also realize that it's not necessarily about you. So don't be boastful and try to take credit for being a good person. Because that's what you're supposed to do. The point of me making this video is not to espouse Christianity, but rather the point is to illustrate how we're supposed to treat people. I can look at my own religion, and that's what I have as a reference point. But the same messages are found in all religions, in secular humanism, and in just basic human decency. It's funny, Jesus is actually often characterized kind of like it's a bunch of people throwing questions at him, and he's constantly dodging and weaving. So at one point, the religious leaders were lobbing questions at him, trying to catch him in a slip-up. And they asked him, which is the greatest commandment? Everybody's familiar with the 10, but then there's like 600 other ones in the Old Testament. And so he said to them, the greatest one is, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, all thy soul, and with all thy mind. But then he threw him a curveball and said, the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Which, if you're any kind of moral person, you'll recognize is the golden rule. Every religion has some version of it. And that's what it boils down to. So for Transgender Day of Visibility, that's what I want to focus everybody on. Whether you're trans yourself or you're just trying to be an ally. Especially with everything that is going on nationally and with all of the challenges that we are facing. Do like they said in Bill and Ted.
Be excellent to each other.
Follow the golden rule. Whether you're religious or not, you'll find some version of it. See each other and help each other. And as I put it, I think very succinctly, in my coming out video, don't be a jerk. That's about it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I'll see you around.